Sorry, Mayor. Chair, entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, moved by Mr. Lawrence, seconded by Mr. Guines. All in favor? Motion carries without any discussion. The clerk would read the revisions.
To the consent agenda, we're adding 5M, resolution authorizing expenditures to Gulf Coast Symphony Orchestra in the amount of $1,000.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Lawrence, seconded by Mr. Guines. Discussion. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion.
I'm opposed.
Oh, okay. Have one opposed, so that's 4-1. Mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, everybody, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excuse me, I yawned and missed that. Could you repeat that?
Pardon me?
There being no departmental reports, we'll start with council reports. Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah, we'd like to remind everybody we have the blessing this weekend, so everybody needs to attend that.
93rd
And,
Blessing Athlete. I think this
Right, and we have the
festivities at the Civic Center, and then the Blessing of the Fleet Sunday.
Right.
Correct.
and then we have the ribbon cutting or whatever you call the thing at Forest Avenue. I don't know what you call that.
9 o'clock, the ribbon cutting of the gate, new main gate.
Will it actually be open? Or
No,
we
it's not going to be open, but anyway, they're expecting they had to do some arrangements because they expect rain, and they're going to do it under one of the pavilions, and I think that's the latest. Give me a nod, Cecilia, okay? So that's the plan, 9 o'clock inside the gate, and there'll be limited parking, so hopefully, maybe if we get some cooperation with the weather, but it'll be 9 o'clock that morning.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I'm sure if it works.
Yeah.
It's going to be quite interesting to see how we're going to handle that traffic with extra added lights. To me, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
The lights at four and stuff like that.
Yeah,
You got 4 lights to get to the interstate.
The 2 new lights, I think, from Biloxi and Porter Avenue, and I think they're finalizing the base course of asphalt right now from the roundabout all the way to Biloxi.
Yeah, we'll have to just keep an eye on it, and see what it takes for us maybe to have 2 ramps leaving the road, going into the interstate with it. That might help some. Where before we just have 1, could be a problem. That's it. That's the main thing.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Mr. Guines.
Yeah, just add one thing. I had a question from someone earlier today about the visitor center. Mike, I guess this would be Mike, they got a patch on it. Is there expected time to have that wrapped up? Top of the visitor center, I think we got some shingles that need to be done on that.
Okay, that's two Zeta projects. They total to about $1 million total. That's the roof, and the roof tiles have come in, so we're getting ready to, we've issued the notice to proceed. We've been waiting all this time for the roof tiles. We've also given a notice to proceed to the company that's doing all the repairs inside, and had a pre-con meeting with both of them so they could stay coordinated in their activities. So they're both inside and outside work is going to be starting now.
So, okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. I can give that report next week. Okay, thanks. That's it. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Guines. Mr. Deming.
Mike, if you would, will you touch base with Sherry Bell and see if we can get an understanding on the Mississippi Power, what's going on with the potential leasing and operating lights at the ball fields over by the park off Pops Ferry, Margaret Sherry Library? Are you familiar with this?
I'm not sure what you're asking. I mean, what do you want?
An update.
Need some additional lighting?
When Ms. Bell talked with, we were looking at using some money from the bond, and Mississippi Power proposed a lease option with them that would save us a considerable amount of money and obligation. It would reduce our obligations to maintaining those lights if we could find out where that's at.
Okay,
That's all I
I'll
have.
get with you afterwards.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Deming. Mr. Tisdale. No report. Mr. Barrett.
Just a reminder that Friday night, we have movie night, Eagle Point Park. I believe it's at 6 o'clock, Friday night. It's not, what time? 7 o'clock. Friday night. That's
What's
all I
the
have.
attire? Is there? Thank you, Mr. Barrett. The only thing I want to add, I know we've had a lot of the high schools have been graduating, and tonight is Biloxi High's graduation. So shout out to all those students who made it to their senior year tonight. Hope they enjoy it very safely. We'll move on to public comments. We have a total of 45 minutes for this segment in the agenda. Once you're called, come up to the front, take your seat, state your name and your address clearly, and then if you would sign in, there's a paper that's up here at the front. Just sign your name and address as well. So we'll begin on my left, your right. Anyone would like to come up, make any comments? There being it, no one, will start on my right, your left. Anyone would like to come up?
My name is Sid Lloyd. I live at 15171 Lamy Bridge Road and would like to ask the council on the medical cannabis issue to add community business onto the zoning. It's right now in Biloxi, it's only zoned industrial and agricultural, which is very limited in the city of Biloxi. And we've got property that would work well on community business because all these facilities will be totally enclosed, secure. You'll never even know what's in there. It's like a big warehouse. You're gonna miss the boat on this one if you don't do something because a lot of employees, a lot of tax base there.
Okay, sir. Thank you for your comments. Did I miss anyone? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Burton, and my address is 11454 Coleman Road in Gulfport. I'm actually here with Mr. Lloyd. I'm a CPA here on the Gulf Coast and have come before this council on several issues related to zoning and stuff like that. Actually, my comments today will actually be complimentary to your planning commission. Most of the time, I'm sure a lot of people come up here and complain about what you're not doing correctly. I think that when Mr. Lloyd's situation came up, I encouraged him to go see Jerry Creel related to the zoning because of the restrictions related to agricultural and industrial zoning related to this facility that Mr. Lloyd is looking to do. Jerry was very complimentary and then also talked to Chairman Dillinger about the situation and brought that up to him so he could share that with also the people on the Planning Commission. So I think that in this situation, once it was properly explained as far as how Biloxi would actually restrict itself, you know, as far as the ability to attract business in this area, that kind of the light went on, and then basically I said to everybody, I said, you know, the thing about it is that you want to have good, smart growth. And I said, the thing about it is, so this thing doesn't get out of control like a wildfire, is that, you know, the Department of Health as well as the Department of Revenue are going to be highly regulatory in this space. And I deal with the Department of Revenue on a much more numerous basis than I'd like to, so I can understand that their enforcement of making sure that things are handled properly are done right. So that's really pretty much my only comments. I wanted to bring some feedback from the commission so that the board could actually hear that process is working, and I look forward and I'm hopeful that the board will approve this request for a more inclusive zoning request related to these facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Miss anybody in the back of the room that would like to come up and speak? There being no one, public comments is now closed. We'll move on to the policy agenda. Clerk, item A.
Ordinance to approve a zoning map amendment for zoning classification of RE residential estate to neighborhood business for property at 13133 Respurce Run Road.
Mr. Barrett?
I move this, but I will defer to Kenny because this is now in his ward. So I'll let him, I'm fine with it. Just
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. I've rode out, I've looked at this property, I've had some conversations a little bit. I'm trying to get up to speed with it. It's in an area where there's another facility that's operating to serve the community, and this is designed to do that. If I could ask Mr. Creel to come up and share some of your knowledge with the council, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. This property that we're talking about now is currently a vacant lot. What they're proposing to do is to build a veterans transitional housing there. There would be one building on the property. It would contain the offices, the food bank, the community house, and then 2 apartments. What's happening now is that whenever veterans go through the rehab program, there's not a place for them to move, to transition back into life again. So essentially what happens is they become homeless. And what the developer here is proposing to do is to have a transitional apartments there for them because there's a 90-day wait period between the time that they get out and the time that they can have housing set up for them through the Biloxi Housing Authority. So what this would do is give them a place to live during that 90-day period before they could then move into a house or an apartment that is being provided by the Biloxi Housing Authority. The original application was asking for CB zoning. This property is currently zoned RE. They were asking for CB. When it went through Planning Commission, even though it backs up to Glenn Miller's property, which is already zoned CB, Planning Commission took into consideration that there were still a couple of neighbors there that live in residential houses, and the Planning Commission decided to downgrade the recommendation from CB to NB with a conditional use. So they approved the recommendation for NB, and then the applicant will have to come back and ask for conditional use approval.
Director, I do have a question. When I rode down this road to take a look at the property, I didn't notice any signs that was advertising that there was going to be a hearing or an ordinance. Is that required, or was there a sign placed there? Did it get blown away, or?
It could have gotten blown away, or we could have picked it up, because the only thing we'd be advertising is the public hearing before the Planning Commission.
Okay.
And once that's over, then we reclaim those signs and reuse them.
All right, so that may have already happened. That's why I didn't see any signage there. Okay. All right.
Question, Kenny, I mean, do you have a problem with anything here?
The only thing, I haven't had a chance to talk to, this is a new part of my ward now, and I haven't had a chance to speak to anyone that would be affected or this property is going to be situated on. And the only thing I might do is maybe request to kind of table this either for a period of time or subject to call, so I can get a chance to at least speak to the neighbors in that area. That's the only thing I might ask for. I was going to see if there would be anybody here tonight, either for or against it, and I just haven't had that opportunity. And Mr. Barrett, I don't know if you've had any feedback, on this at all.
No, I do know that there's very limited stuff down that road. I know there's a church, and then there's a rehab center as well that's there in an old home that they converted. But there's not a lot down there. But no one has called me. I don't know if anyone was at the Planning Commission speaking out against it or at the hearing, but no one's called me on it.
Now, the church that's on that property is no longer being used as a church, and the Planning Commission and the council are going to receive an application probably in the next few weeks to change the zoning on that piece of property as well for a similar purpose.
Your call, Kenny.
Yeah,
I'll second the table.
maybe we can table it for, until our next meeting, just one meeting, if y'all don't mind. I just want to get a little background, make sure we're moving in the right direction. It seems like it is suitable for this, but I just want to make darn sure that somebody says I didn't speak to anyone.
That's fine.
And so if we can table it, if that's okay, I make a motion to table
Second.
until our June 1st meeting, June 7th meeting. Okay. I make that motion.
I second it.
Seconded by Mr. Lawrence. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Table it until our next meeting. Next item.
Ordinance to amend text within the land development ordinance to introduce and define the specific use medical cannabis.
Who?
I made the motion, did Felix second it?
Yes.
Mr. Tisdale, you got the mic.
There you go, all right. Thought I was deaf there for a moment.
Be careful.
I know. Several things, and Jerry, I'm sure some folks may have questions, but I just want to make some observations and share some thoughts. It says what's proposed is that dispensaries, research facilities, and testing facilities are allowed within the neighborhood business zones, community business zones, regional business zones, and industrial zones as a permitted use, and downtown zones and waterfront zones as a conditional use. I note that limited business is not listed in there anywhere, so I assume that it would be prohibited in a limited business zone, Jerry?
Yes, sir. The way the land development ordinance is written, if there's a blank in that category, that means that it's not permitted.
Right, okay. And my suggestion would be that we remove neighborhood business zones from the zones where they would be permitted as well. So just hold that thought. We can discuss it later. Also, I would like to see added to the list of restrictions within 1,000 feet. I think currently that's schools, churches, child care facilities. And I would add funeral homes to that list, since from time to time they have religious services in there for funerals. And then that some thought be given to the following: prohibiting signage that uses cartoons or other imagery that would attract or appeal to minors. Prohibit signs promoting medical cannabis from being located in zones where a medical cannabis facility or dispensary could not locate.
Okay, the signage is going to be totally controlled by the state.
Okay, so
The
okay.
regulations are in there where they control the signage. We would not have any
All
authority.
right, and signs would not be mobile. Is that permitted, do you know?
Okay. I didn't see that. It basically just had a statement that said that the
Okay,
size of the signs and the type would be regulated by the state.
so the signage is handled by the state. The last thought that I have is to prohibit leaflets, brochures, or handbills. Just from the amount of litter they're going to be producing, first of all, but the folks who are going to these dispensaries are card holders. And I don't know why you'd need a handbill or something there on the premises to distribute if you're dealing with basically these patients who are required to have a card in order to be serviced at that location. So I'd be glad if there was some discussion on some of these topics. That concludes my comments at the moment.
Okay. Mr. Guines?
I have no comments. I think it's fine.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yeah, I don't know, if Jerry, if you can answer these questions. Yesterday I spent about an hour on the phone with Peter trying to find out all the legal aspects of what the state actually can tell you to do and what we can do ourselves. And a few things in there with these pharmacies, that was either 1,000 feet by a church or something like that. Well, I don't see how you can eliminate any pharmacy out where they're sitting at. So I don't know why that was written in there like that, because they sell OxyContin, they sell Dilaudid, they sell morphine every day. So this is just another drug that we're gonna class, as a class 2 drug. So you shouldn't be eliminating pharmacies because they by church or by a school or whatever. I mean, I just had a problem with that. And Peter said he couldn't be here today. He said, if y'all want to table this, he'll be here next week and answer all your questions, from the legal point. Maybe Robert, well, he probably knows more about the legal point than I do. It's just some of those things affected me when you start saying, this pharmacy can't fill it, this one can. We can't do that with our insurance, and they deal with class 2 drugs every day. So I don't know why they eliminate them, because of fee by the school or church or whatever.
If you look at this law, and this is the law in this notebook over here, we've already talked about how voluminous it is. It's over 400 pages. But out of all those pages, the part that's been delegated to the cities and counties is very limited. There are only 2 pages in there that deal with cities and counties. And basically what we have the authority to do is to regulate the zoning. The decisions the council would have to make is, number one, are we going to allow it in Biloxi? And if so, the second question would be, all right, where are we going to allow it? The entirety of this program and the head of this program is going to be the Mississippi Department of Health. And then underneath them would be the Mississippi Department of Revenue and the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. And they're going to be the ones that actually administer this program and police these facilities and everything else. Now, on the distance requirements, Mr. Lawrence, that's actually written into the state law. We essentially took this ordinance, took the direct language on the definitions of these 6 types of entities and on the distances and the things like that, took that language right out of the state law. And this morning I was trying to do a little bit more research to find out who will actually administer this variance. What you mentioned before is that these type of entities would not be allowed within 1,000 feet of a church, school, or daycare center. However, there's an exception in there that says that the owner can seek a variance on that to reduce it down to 500 feet, but it doesn't say specifically who the agency is that would grant that variance. And I talked to Scott Delano and Kevin Felcher this morning, and that would be the state. They would have to apply to the state to reduce that down to the 500 feet. There's also a question about taxation on these materials, and there is a 5% excise tax on this, very similar to the excise tax on gas and airplane tickets and tobacco that the federal government does. In this case, it would be the state. The excise tax would go to the state, but then there would be the normal 7% sales tax that that would provide the city with our disbursement.
That's why I'd like to table this for a week, and we can have a meeting at 5 o'clock before the 6 o'clock meeting, and have Peter explain everything, put it back on the table for next week. But I like to just find out, I don't see how you can eliminate businesses because some footage. Some of that deals with class 2 drugs every day.
Chief Miller can answer. He was telling me about it, and he knows more about it than me, but he may be able to respond to that.
Yes, sir. So it's my understanding that the reason it's not being distributed by pharmacies is because pharmacies are federally regulated through the DEA. And as far as marijuana goes, or any derivative of marijuana, it's still federally illegal. So until the federal government decides that they're going to go along with this and be legal, it can't be distributed through pharmacies. My opinion is that's exactly how it should be distributed, because it's like any other drug, it should be distributed through a pharmacy. But until the federal government decides that they're either going to accept it or not accept it, you're going to have to go through these private dispensaries.
I mean, you're walking a fine line there. You talk about a prescription written by a doctor for legal marijuana medication whether for macular degeneration, for cancer, fine, then you have to have a pharmacist fill that prescription. Nobody else can fill it.
I agree with you.
Nobody else can fill it. So, I mean, when you start eliminating the drugstores, you eliminate places where the people can go get the prescription filled. That, well, we accepted it here, and we can do it, but I mean, this is brand new, and it needs to be done right. And pharmacists has to fill those prescriptions. Medically, marijuana has to be filled by a pharmacist, period. Nobody else can touch it.
I agree, but my
So,
understanding is until the
that
feds
needs to
decide-
be, that needs to be a legal, I don't know, Robert?
Mr.
If you know
Lawrence, you got
anything-
the mic, but
No, I'm just asking him, does he know
Mr. Deming
anything
would like to ask a question.
about the legal aspect of filling these prescriptions?
This is a unique carve-out that's allowed by state law. Like the chief said, this isn't something that's regulated by the federal government because it's actually illegal. So it's outside the purview of all the rules and requirements that pharmacies have to use. So we've designed our own laws here within the state, and because we're a sub-governmental entity, we're only allowed to deal with a few minor aspects of this bill. The state controls the majority of it. One thing that I wasn't clear on when I read the bill is this distance, and I've been asked numerous times, is the distance from a daycare, a pharmacy, a distance from a daycare, a church, or a school as the crow flies, or is it the street?
I think it's from the real property line.
Well, I mean, to get to that property line, is it as the crow flies, or if you have to go 500 feet down this road and 300 feet this way, is it that?
It would be a direct line.
Well, no, let me jump in. I heard from the front door of the dispensary to the property line. Is that correct?
That,
Front
so
door.
a dispensary can't be located within 1,500 feet of the front door of another dispensary.
That's
And so
correct.
No,
that's
but-
what makes me curious. So if you're on the back side of the building, does the size of the building count to get to the front door? Or do you have to go around the building to count that
The mayor's
distance?
correct. It says from the front door of the dispensary to the property line, and anytime you're dealing with zoning issues, it's always the closest point of that property line. So what you would do is you would measure from the front door of that dispensary, for example,
As the crow flies.
So it's as the crow flies?
closest
Okay.
distance, yes.
Well,
Couple-
that,
Or the seagull, either one. Whatever.
or as seagull flies, yeah.
That was the request that
Go
we
do
table
something
this.
So, while I have the mic, I'll just may I make a couple of statements? Or do you still have more stuff, George? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, would just ask y'all to table this until next Tuesday at 5 o'clock and sit down with Peter, and then you could probably find out some more about it. But I just have a problem when you start eliminating because some footage. I mean, that's, to me,
Before we take up your suggestion to table, let's give the rest of the council
sure, no,
a chance to
no
speak.
problem with it's brand new. It's important.
Since you're in the process of speaking, I'll recognize Mr. Deming.
I just want to mention one thing about the leaflets or the handbills. The law that was written by the state actually contemplates the leaflets and the handbills, and that the dispensaries are only allowed to have certain things within that dispensary, and one of those things is educational materials for those people, which would be handbills or leaflets. The other issue that we have is then dealing with restricting someone's First Amendment rights. If we start telling people that they can't do something that other people can do because of the material that the substance of the material that we disseminate. Other than that, I'm done.
Let me mention just a couple of things too that you might be interested in. On the 1,500-foot distance from one dispensary to the other, there is no variance exception included in the state law. That's only for the dispensary from the church and school.
So that's going to be like a race to City Hall then. I mean, whoever gets there first.
You know, and we've been receiving calls about this for the last 2 or 3 months. You know, people wanting to ask questions about it. The fees that will be paid to the state for some of these entities are they're not cheap. For a Tier 6 cultivator that's going to be cultivating more than 10,000 square feet, the fee is $150,000. So just like Scott Delano told me in the beginning, you know, the people that think they're just going to be able to go rent a space somewhere and start to open this, the regulations are very strict, the oversight's very strict, the initial fee for getting involved in it's very strict, And if you read the fine section of this, the fines for violation are also very strict, and those would be enforced by the Department of Agriculture and Commerce. One last thing is that the Planning Commission made some recommendations on where certain things could be allowed. I have a couple of recommendations that I'd like to change when we get into it, whether that's today or not. For example, one of the entities is a transportation entity, which would be the equivalent of a truck terminal. And, you know, the recommendation was to allow it in CB and RB zoning. Well, CB is our tourism district, and I just don't know if we want to open the door to have a truck terminal in our hospitality business district. RB might be more acceptable, but we'd like for that to be considered as a conditional use because it falls in line more with those types, and that would give the council the authority to take a look at each individual site and determine whether or not they do it. It would be allowed as a permitted use in industrial zoning, which is really the appropriate place for it to go.
Okay. Mr. Deming, you have anything else? No. Ms. Newman? Mr. Tisdale? Mr. Barrett?
I have nothing.
I have nothing. Mr. Lawrence?
I'd still would like to request the table this until next Tuesday at 5 and have a meeting with Peter. And Jerry can bring all the changes you want, write them all up.
Okay.
If that's good with y'all. I was just thinking something we need to look at because this is the first time around. This is something brand new for all of us. So we have to make sure we just put it on the table right. Thank you.
All right, motion to table till our next meeting. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second. I don't think that that's going to hurt anything because no one can open up shop yet anyway,
Okay.
from my understanding. So a week to make sure that we get it right.
Seconded by Mr. Barrett. Any other discussion?
Just a comment to be sure I understand. George, did you say that you wanted to meet with the attorney, Mr. Abide, prior to the council meeting at 6?
If that's good with y'all, 5 o'clock, before the meeting.
5 o'clock? That'd be fine to clear up some of these questions and so forth. And that would be at our June 7th meeting, which is 2 weeks from today.
When is our public hearing?
Same night.
7th.
What time is the public hearing?
6 at the 6 meeting.
At 6 o'clock. So the public, and then following that would be our regular meeting. So 5 o'clock or whatever
Good
would
for
work.
everybody.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor to table to the next meeting? All opposed? Motion carries. Unanimous. Item C.
Resolution granting minor subdivision final replat for North Bay Professional Park subdivision located at 941 Iron Horse Drive.
I'll move this. If I could have a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Tisdale. I have a question. This is on Iron Horse and Biloxi Commerce Park, correct?
Yes, sir.
Does this conform to the previous design components or not?
Well, they haven't presented anything in the way of a project to us yet. All he's doing is taking the one large L-shaped piece of property and dividing it into two. It meets the standards for lots in this zoning. So it meets the zoning aspect of it. When it comes forward with the building plans, I'll be able to answer your question more, but we haven't received anything on that yet.
So if we do adopt, I know we're in the middle of considering creating a different district for this. We talked about it last meeting. If you recall, we charged
Yes.
your office with that. If you do adopt those, would they fall into that, or will they be grandfathered because they made this application prior to adopting any design standards?
The only thing they've applied for right now is just the zoning standards. So when they come forward, it's really going to depend on when the text changes are adopted for the design standards and when he submits his application to build on here.
So let me ask that question a different way.
Yeah.
If we approve this zoning and then he comes forward with his design standards prior to us adopting it, he would be allowed to do whatever he wants to do?
That's correct. There are no design standards in place now, so there's nothing that we could enforce. So We'd have to wait until they're actually in place.
Okay. Do you know how long you anticipate for him, if any? I mean, what would be the soonest this entity could give you any kind of plans?
I don't know. I'll be happy to call him. He did not go to DRC with a project on this plan. So we don't know if he is dividing this up just to sell them as individual lots, or if he plans to develop on it himself. I can make you aware of that as soon as something is submitted.
How soon do you think it would take you to make a recommendation to adopt those standards that expired? How long would it take your office to put that together?
We could probably have those to you in about 30 days. Essentially, what we're going to do is to take the design standards, the architectural standards that were there when it was under Harrison County Development Commission, and I would meet with David Hardy and talk to him about which ones he recommends need to remain intact. And then it would be a text change, so we would have to have a public hearing before the Planning Commission. And then we could bring it back to the City Council.
I think you probably need to table this too, Kenny.
You know, so what we're talking here, we got Biloxi Commerce Park, and there's a lot of businesses that have already relocated. They've been established there. They built under certain design components like setbacks and curbing and everything. Those design standards expired before we had a chance to continue those under, because it now falls under our jurisdiction and not Harris County Development Commission. And I would hate all of a sudden that we have another business locate in there and they have the flexibility to kind of disrupt that continuity with the businesses that are already there. At the same time, I don't want to hold somebody up that's trying to move forward and do their due diligence, so I'm kind of torn here. Is this any time sensitive, that if we delayed this for a little bit?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
All right. I'd like to table it subject to call. We can call it up at any time. I'd like to see how, I know you got a lot on your plate, Director, but if you can get those new design standards in place and maybe let him know that we're working through that, you know, that would be the best route to follow, I believe.
I'll second that.
We'll do
All
that.
right.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second by Mr. Tisdale. Any other discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Subject to call. Need a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Lawrence,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Tisdale. Mr. Lawrence?
Mike, on C, we started with 26 units at Joseph's old property, and now we're down to 21. And he took 3 years out for short-term rentals, now we're down to 18. So we have 18 like apartments at the old Bowden's building, Josette's.
So what's your question?
My question is, we went from 26 to 18. So I think we dropped there. I know it's part of that program with, you know, some of the money coming from the city to help them promote that. And are we subtracting money from that as we go along?
It's not per unit. I think it was for the whole store, the whole front. I think it's 40,000 total, isn't it? What that incentive is? Yeah. You know, I'm not sure where 21 came from or how they got down to 18, but I think there've been some adjustments to what's happened on the first floor as well as on the top floor. So, I mean, that's a lot of folks living in that site. So.
So I know we just adjust that. That's really my question. I'm not against any of this stuff. You know, they're gonna have 18 apartments there. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And he said he's gonna use 3 of the 21 for short-term rentals, which is probably legal for him to do out there. I know we've reduced, I thought it was like 275,000 we gave him to help promote this project.
No.
I think it reduced it down, you know, from the main
I
street.
think Peter would be the one to answer that specifically, but you know, I don't think we were putting out any more or any less money based on the original, you know, I guess, scoping.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we, taking the right steps and everything. And on the E, echoed like Mike Lynn likes. Is this where they're not paying for something on the signing and we coming up with the money from the MDA? Did FEMA not pay for something or something happened with the contract? Is we adding 100,000 from the Department of Archives?
We had a $100,000 grant, and it was already awarded and invoiced and spent. It was used for the roof.
Right.
That's all the money we got out of MDAH, but we're gonna go after some more, because as you can see in item L, Lima, we've been delayed by, MDAH has come in now and given us additional requirements that were not in the original design, such as removing the stucco exterior and fixing the brick behind it. Some of these things were not in the original plan.
Yeah, let me jump in. I know that the last, in talking with Lee from Dale and Associates, there was some question on the look and the feel of the mortar and the replacement brick on that west side. So that's been holding us up about 3 weeks, I think, and they're at MDA, asking for permission to do what we think was right. Although it's been reviewed several times, this is the last step there. But I think the money is what Mike is, some of the additional things that they dropped on us as they got into it, kind of frustrates us, frustrates me anyhow, on getting this thing done and open so we can proceed with the interior and the operational of the Sanger Theater through some third party. So I'm a little bit frustrated, Mike is too, on the obstacles that were put up by MDAH.
And they're gonna open their portal up, and we're gonna ask for some more money. I mean, for example, this delay of over a month means that the builder's risk insurance ran out, and then the contractor had to extend his insurance policy. It meant that the scaffolding had to stay in place, and we had to pay more months for the scaffolding and so forth. All these costs are additional and caused by the delay that MDAH has thrown at us. Now, they're not changing the contract value, that the value that's being paid to the contractor. These are some pass-throughs that are just actual costs, and we're doing that from the original contract's value.
Yeah, let me say what's already been delivered is that whole storefront, the doors and the windows in that front is being held up by this last step, and we got to remove those scaffoldings before we can do the awning replacement. All that stuff is in, and all the doors, and the ticket booth, all that equipment is waiting to be installed to complete that whole exterior. So we're really being held up by some things that were created by MDAH.
Appreciate that. And you like, you didn't do it. You didn't holler anything. That was good. I like that. Thank you.
Mr. Tisdale?
I don't have anything.
Lost for words.
I'm at a loss for words. I'm speechless.
All right.
I have nothing to
Mr.
add.
Gines?
No, I'm good.
Ms. Deming? Ms. Newman? I had to make sure y'all were awake. Ms. Newman? Mr. Barrett?
Nothing.
I have nothing. Any exceptions? Mr. Lawrence?
No, nothing.
Mr. Gines? Ms. Newman? Mr. Tisdale?
None.
Mr. Barrett? I have none. All in favor of the consent agenda? Those opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the routine agenda. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All right, moved by Mr. Lawrence, seconded by Mr. Gines. Mr. Lawrence?
Where's Walt? He was walking there. I know he's hiding in the back there. It's your showtime. It's showtime for you once a week.
So at our last meeting, I advised the council that we should have 549,000 coming into the city, and we received that last Thursday. Our next conference call with MEMA and FEMA is this Thursday, and hopefully we'll be discussing about another 1.5, 1.6 million coming to the city coffers.
And you have anything behind those?
Sir?
Do you have anything behind those? Those are last, so we got the 549,
Yes, sir.
and then we're still waiting for the 1.5.
Yes, sir.
you
That'll
have
probably
anything
be
else in the
late
pipeline?
June. It'll be coming in late June.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kenny,
Scoggins, you got anything? Anyone else have anything on a routine?
Councilman,
Yes, sir.
I apologize for being tardy at the beginning of the meeting, but I'd left at each of your places the report of the engineering department. I think if you look at it, you'll realize you all see these piece at a time, but sometimes you don't see the whole picture. If you look at that, one of the things I'm sure will be amazed that we are working 11 subdivisions and 35 active projects right now, and amounting to a good deal of money. And a lot of those projects we've talked about over time, such as the Pops Ferry Bridge project, such as the Point Cadet Marina, the commercial harbor. All of these projects are all coming to fruition now and are being bid out and awarded. And so there's a lot of activity right now, and I just wanted to share that with you. It's posted online, but I think you probably don't see it. But I just wanted to give you that report.
We thank you for that report. It always helps for us to see all the great work that engineering is doing for us on our behalf. Mr. Deming would like to add something before we adjourn.
I want to go back and it's already been voted on, but wanted to ask you about, I had to step out for a moment, the cameras on B on the consent agenda, and I'm assuming this is going to be a police budget issue. Can you tell us about this project with NOLA?
Yeah, this is just an extension. We've been doing business with Project NOLA for about 2 years now. So this is just an extension to buy some more cameras, some software, and enclosures for the cameras. So, our whole purpose is to have cameras in as many places in the city as we can, working towards a real-time crime center. Right now, we have a crime center. We have the monitors on the wall. We can pull up the individual cameras and look at them. But eventually, what we'd like to have is we'd like to have someone monitoring those cameras 24 hours a day. That's our goal, lofty goal to get to in the future.
I saw in the ordinance a mention of license plate readers.
Mhm.
I'm the worst about not using my turn signal, so
So in the state of
Hit
Mississippi,
him.
you can't issue a citation by camera.
okay.
Yeah, a moving violation. Ocean Springs is issuing, it's not a moving violation, but they're able to insurance citations. But that's really about the only thing you can do. Several years ago, I think it was under Governor Bryant, we had looked at some software and a company that was going to implement that, and they were going to do it all over the state. And the governor outlawed that aspect of a citation through the mail. So the cameras are great as far as looking at crime as it's going on and stolen cars and things like that. But as far as issuing a citation, unless the law changes in Mississippi, that won't happen.
Great, thank you, Chief. I appreciate it.
I don't know if it's great.
All right, Mr. Deming, I allowed you to get us out of order here. Do you have anything else before we get back on track? Okay. Do we have anything else on the routine agenda? If not, we'll go ahead and call for the vote. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Tisdale.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Guines. Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? Meeting is now adjourned.
30 minutes longer than we needed to.
Good job, Ken.
You could have, you had your chance.